his hand up, then I'll come to you. Said, of course you're going to get a question. Has there ever been a briefing where you've not gotten a question on this issue?
The US government has concluded that 5 different Israeli units committed gross human rights violations, but as of now, all of those units can still continue to receive US arms, weapons, ammunition.
Well, in 4 of those instances, as I just said, we have seen remediation of those violations.
Can you talk about within what time frame this new information from the Israeli government reached the State Department?
I'm just not going to speak to that specificity on diplomatic engagement. That is not a double standard or any kind of special treatment.
I want to defer to my colleagues with it just seems hard to countenance. There's no double standard with this is a special arrangement and sort of.
Today, I'm going to keep my speech very, very short. This is just to explain the background, the context, the perspective before I let you watch the press briefing of the State Department. So the context is that, as you know, America has surprisingly found at least 5 battalions of Israeli army, who I call the bunch of terrorists, guilty of gross human rights violations. Yes, America has, for the first time, has found that 5 battalions of Israeli army have committed gross human rights violations against Palestinians. And by the way, these 5 battalions have committed those violations not since October the 7th. I mean, nobody has any, America doesn't have any details of those violations. These are the violations that took place before 7th of October 2023. So just imagine what may have happened after that, when America clearly doesn't have any details or pretends not to have any details of Israeli human rights violations in Gaza. So anyway, so America found it. Now, there's something called Leahy Law. The Leahy Law, which came into being in 1997, the sponsor of the law was the Patrick Leahy, who was the then senator. It allows America to impose military sanctions on those units if they are found to be involved in gross human rights violations. Now, you would have thought that America has Leahy Law and America has found the 5 battalions of Israeli army of human rights violations. So, America would have imposed military sanctions on all these units. Now, you are mistaken. This is Israel, right? So, there is a special rule for Israel. Although America would tell you that they don't have double standard, they have flipping double standard. We all know that. They cannot act against Israel. So in this case also, they have not acted. And I'm telling you because this will help you understand the press briefing, which I'm going to play immediately after this. So Secretary Blinken, Anthony Blinken, he told Israelis about his intention on the 19th of April. He asked them to take remedial actions. Now, today is the 1st of May, and Israelis have shown middle finger to Anthony Blinken. Anthony Blinken and brain dead Joe Biden would like to think that they are the superpower. They are mistaken. In the case of Israelis are the superpower, as we have seen. So Israelis have shown the middle finger to them. Now, the most notorious army battalion which is facing America's scrutiny is a unit called Netza Yehuda. Netza Yehuda consists of the second generation illegal settlers from the West Bank. They are quite brutal, and the charges they are facing are not ordinary charges. The charges they are facing are charges of raping women, children, massacring them. These are not just allegations. It's not the same allegations, unfounded allegations that Israelis made in the case of 7th of October, that babies being burnt in oven or the raped or brutalized and all. And we know that all of them have been proven to be unfounded. I'm not saying that the United Nations officials, they have said that. But in this case, even America has now found those gross human rights violations. And yet, America has not taken any actions against them. In fact, America is not able to take any actions against them. How did it come to light? It came to light, the brutalities came to light after the death of a Palestinian American, 80-year-old Palestinian American. In this case, one victim held American passport. He was a Palestinian American, and therefore America was forced to indulge in ticking the box exercise. Had he been a white person, maybe America would have reacted more harshly towards Israel. Now, this chap, the Indian origin, was the press briefing in the State Department, Vedant Patel, he was repeatedly asked, and you can see how he loses temper, how he contradicts himself, how he indulges in U-turns, and in a sense that he embarrasses himself quite spectacularly. So now this background in place, now I want you to watch this press interaction.
I just want to follow up on what you've been saying about the standard, being a typical process that you follow, and remediation, being standard across the board. So what is the remediation standard here? How long are you?
So that's the point that I was making, is that the standard of remediation is that these respective countries take effective steps to hold the accountable party to justice. And that is different on a country-by-country basis. I'm not going to be prescriptive of that on here, including in this incident. But it is...
I'm sorry, but then it's not a standard if you're saying it's different on a country-by-country basis.
It's a standard in the sense that we expect to see remediation in, but each country in which we have a security relationship is different. There are different protocols and procedures in place in those respective countries. And those respective countries can speak to what accountability measures they have within their systems. I'm not a spokesperson for those components.
So you won't speak to what the process you're expecting to play out here is, how long you're giving
Correct.
Israel for remediation?
Absolutely. I'm not going to get into that beyond saying that we are engaging with the government of Israel on these things, and I'm sure we'll have more to share in the time ahead.
And then the secretary said 10 days ago that a determination on the Leahy front with Israel had been made and that we would see results. So I'm wondering if the determination that he made 10 days ago is this determination that you guys are now making public, or if that changed due to engagements with Israel.
What we were talking about was the gross violations of human rights. As it relates to this one particular unit, I will say that this process continues to be ongoing, given this additional information that we're engaging with the government of Israel, consistent with the memorandum of understanding that we have with them. Simon,
Okay.
go ahead. I'll get to you. I'm sure.
So no answer as to if it's changed.
What? Sorry.
The
What?
determination 10 days ago, is this, you
What-
won't say if it's the same determination.
What we were speaking about was the gross violations of human rights. That's what the secretary was alluding to. I will say that this process, though, with the government of Israel broadly, continues to be ongoing, especially as it relates to this one unit.
Just to clarify
Yeah.
where we are, because this is a bit complicated, the US government has concluded that 5 different Israeli units committed gross human rights violations, but as of now, all of those units can still continue to receive U.S. arms, weapons, ammunition.
Well, in 4 of those instances, as I just said, we have seen remediation of those violations, and that is, of course, what we expect of partners. Beyond that, as it relates to this 5th unit, that is a process that is still ongoing.
Right.
But let me just say, Simon, since you gave me the opportunity, when we're talking about the Leahy Law, what we are talking about are unit and component restrictions when they are found in violation. It does not have bearing on the broader security relationship that we may have with a country, especially a country like Israel, in which we have a longstanding security relationship, the provision of bulk assistance that's gone back many, many years.
But as of now, even the 5th unit, where you're unsure whether there's been remediation, they are still eligible to receive U.S. arms.
That is the interpretation of the law.
Yeah,
correct.
and to sort of, I wonder, the public might listen to you say that you've concluded that there are gross violations of human rights, but is there any detail you can give us? What are these incidents? What kind of things are we talking about? Some of the reporting has involved, sexual assaults, there's murder. Is there anything you can tell us about what this conclusion is?
So I'm not going to get into the specifics of these incidents from up here because overall the totality of this situation continues to be an ongoing process, but I have no doubt that we will have more to share in the time ahead, and that is consistent with the appropriate congressional pieces as well as the engagements with the host government on this.
And you're not going to tell us what the units are in question.
Again, that is not something that we generally make public beyond through appropriate consultations with legislative bodies as well as the host
So
government.
the U.S. government has conducted a process, found that these units have conducted gross violations of human rights. That sounds very serious, but you won't tell us what those violations were, who committed them, and you're going to continue to send weapons to them.
That is a process that is consistent with the standards that we have with other countries as well. You have to remember, Israel is a country in which we have a long-standing security relationship with. Other countries similar in this grouping, I would say, would include the government in terms of the kinds of relationship we have. Include Ukraine, include Egypt, and in those kinds of countries, there is a proactive vetting of the whole security universe, a constant evaluation in close consultations with our embassies and consulates, NGOs, civil society, media reporting on the ground as to assess what is happening in those countries. And so, consistent with that process, I'm not in a place to share publicly the specific components of their security services in which this is applicable to. Sorry, hold on. Is this on this or on the? Okay, let me get to Olivia. Then I'll come to you, Leon. I'm so sorry.
Can you talk about within what time frame this new information from the Israeli government reached the State Department?
I'm just not going to speak to that specificity on diplomatic engagements. What I can say is that they provided additional information to us, and that is a process that's going to continue to be ongoing.
But was that additional information supplied after the Secretary made his revealed that some determinations had been made?
I'm just not going to get into the diplomatic engagements that we have. What I can say is that this is consistent with the memorandum of understanding in which we have with Israel to talk about these things prior to any conclusions that are made under things that fall under the Foreign Assistance Act.
Generally speaking, are governments under Leahy that we have relationships with bound by a certain amount of time
They are
within
not.
which they need to provide evidence or sort of confirm that they have taken steps?
They are not.
Or,
They
so
are
this
not.
is a completely open-ended
Correct.
process, and violations can stretch on for an indeterminate amount of time. And at what point then does the department actually take any punitive measures?
Well, again, you have to. It's important to remember, Olivia, that each country is different, so it's difficult to talk about these circumstances with a broad brush stroke. What I can say is that there is not a stipulation on timing, but we'll continue to have these engagements, and we will press directly with governments and countries about sharing applicable information. Again, in the context of Israel, this is a government in which we have a long-standing security relationship with. There is constant, around-the-clock evaluation and vetting ongoing as it relates to the security parameters and circumstances on the ground. So we are looking at reports. We are looking at public reporting. We're looking at media reporting, just as we would do in any conflict zone, ensuring that there are no violations of international law, no violations of humanitarian law.
But that seems to be at the core of the problem here, is that Israel is a unique country being offered unique treatment.
They are not being offered unique treatment. There is nothing that I have outlined here that is inconsistent with the Leahy process when it comes to the countries that which we have security
You've
relationships
cited the
with.
long-standing security relationship and how it might...
Because there are some countries in which the relationship we have with them would require us to approach this just slightly differently. Ukraine being an example, Egypt being an example, Israel being another example. But there is not a special treatment. There is not a different standard.
What does slightly differently mean?
So Israel is a country in which we have a long-standing security relationship. There is a lot of bulk assistance that is going, whether to use an example, things like bulletproof vests or something, in which the government of Israel may choose to want something like that, and then it is then on the central government to disseminate that to specific units or components within their security system. So For countries in which we have that kind of longstanding deep relationship, in Israel's case, it's called the Israel Leahy Vetting Forum, there is around the clock, proactive, constant vetting and evaluation of the circumstances that are on the ground to assess whether there are whether there are violations of international humanitarian law, violations of international law. That is a process that is ongoing. There is no such thing as special treatment or double standards here. The standards of the Leahy Law are applied consistently to all countries. Now, in some countries, like the ones that I stipulated, the security relationship is such as that there is this additional forum vehicle, but that is not a double standard or any kind of special treatment.
I want to defer to my colleagues with it just seems hard to countenance. There's no double standard with this is a special arrangement and set of circumstances.
It's not a special arrangement. The standards of which are in fact, it is taking a closer look at the situations on the ground. It's not a double standard. The standards are the same. It is a forum created to allow for the for an assessment that is comparable to the kind of security relationship that we have with that particular country. Israel is not the only one that in which this model exists.
My last question on this is that does the State Department believe that actually taking punitive measures under Leahy in this instance with regard to this one unit would somehow damage diplomatic relations with Israel?
I'm not going to get ahead of that process, Olivia, and we would certainly hope not, because throughout this whole process, we have been clear-eyed and consistent. You've heard the Secretary, you've heard the President, you've heard me, you've heard Matt, that throughout the course of this conflict, we have reiterated our unwavering commitment to Israel's security. That was true then, and it is true now. And Leahy is unit specific. It is not a bearing on the broader security relationship that we have with that particular country. I will also note that this is continues to be an ongoing process, and if at any point remediation efforts or things like that are found to be inconsistent with the standards that we find, there of course will be a restriction on applicable U.S. assistance. We intend to be an administration that's going to follow the law as prescribed. Tom. Oh, sorry. Let me go to Leon because he's had his hand up. Then I'll come to you. Said, of course you're going to get a question. Has there ever been a briefing where you've not gotten a question on this issue? Leon.
Thank you. We agree that all this is pre-October 7 and involves the West Bank, abuses in the West Bank, okay? So quite a while ago. I don't know exactly how long, depending on which of the units you're talking about, but I find it a little bit strange that in 4 of those units, they have remediary, corrections that they did, and you accept that, evidently. And in this 5th unit, what sort of additional information could have come through all of a sudden in the last couple of weeks that would make it that you are not able to make the determination yet? And then second question, what kind of remediary decisions are we talking about? Disciplinary? What kind of corrections? Can you speak to that?
So on the second point, that's up to the host government. The standard that we expect is that they bring the relevant parties to justice. We cannot have some kind of prescriptive metric, given that each country is different and their procedures as it relates to their own government systems and military systems are different. But our standard for remediation, we expect that of all countries in this case. But beyond that, Leon, it is an ongoing process, so I'm not going to get more prescriptive or specific on the relevant details. Tom, go ahead.
I'll just follow up on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I mean, I'm confused. Do you know whether or not the Israelis have remediated this unit?
That is essentially what we are engaging with them on as it relates to this. Again, I can say that in these 5 individual incidents of gross violations of human rights, or for 4 of these units, they have effectively remediated those violations, which is, again, something we expect and want from the countries that which we have security relationships with. It's what we expect of our partners. As it relates to this remaining unit, the government of Israel has submitted a additional information. We are currently reviewing it, which is consistent with the memorandum of understanding we have with them. We're engaging with them in a process, and we'll make a decision from there when that process is complete.
Okay, but the answer is you don't know. You don't know if they've remediated this unit on these cases, and we don't know what the cases are because you're not.
When I say something is mid-process, it's safe to assume
Yeah, but
that,
the law is really clear. So the law says no assistance shall be furnished to any unit of the security forces of a foreign country if the Secretary of State has credible information that such unit has committed a gross violation of human rights. So you've made that determination that they have committed a gross violation of human rights. The exception is that prohibition shall not apply if the Secretary determines and reports to the appropriate congressional committees that the government of such country is taking effective steps to bring responsible members of the security forces to justice. So has the Secretary notified Congress that they are taking effective steps?
So I'm not a legal or technical expert.
Know, and you've just said you don't know if they've remediated. So,
I'm happy to check on the specifics of the legal process for
but
you,
that
Tom,
is the
and
legal
get back
process.
to
So
you.
according to the legal process, you've determined that they have carried out gross violations of human rights, but you haven't determined they've remediated. And yet the Secretary said on April the 19th you had made the determinations. So I'm just really confused about what changed after April the 19th.
As I was pretty clear, what I shared was that the government of Israel has shared additional information with us, and
That, according to the law, that is not an effective remediation. So at the moment, you have a situation where you have determined there is a gross violation, but you don't have remediation. And I can't see any part of the law which says you might decide over a couple of days that it's been remediated and therefore keep the security assistance going.
So, like I said, this is an ongoing process. I'm not going to speak to it more specifically, but consistent with the memorandum of understanding that we have with the government of Israel, we are engaging with them, consulting with them as it relates to not just this broader process, but additional information that they've shared, and we'll have more to share in the time ahead. Saeed, go ahead.
Thank you. Vedant, by the way, can you share with us the outcome of the investigation of the death of Amr Asad that actually died while in custody with this unit, Nitzay Ouda? Do we know what was the outcome of that investigation?
I don't have any specifics.
Could you?
I'm happy to check
yeah,
for you.
Please,
Saeed.
thank you.
Yeah.
The other thing is, it seems that Israel has rebuked the United States call, or your call the other day, for investigating the mass grave, the mass burial, and all these things. Do you have any comment on that?
So, Saeed, there's been some, and if you'll allow me a quick second, I don't have, make sure I just do the right thing here. As it relates to this site, the IDF has been pretty public in that in its search for Israeli hostages, they uncovered graves in the area where Palestinians had previously buried their dead. There has been some pretty consistent public reporting dating back to January that is an area that Palestinians had to bury some bodies, but the IDF can speak more specifically about that process. But you heard me speak to this, you heard the National Security Advisor say, and consistently across this administration, I'd say that the facts matter, and of course, if there is any kind of inconsistency, that needs to be looked into. But I believe that the IDF has spoken publicly about what this is and what this isn't.
Okay, so you accept their answer. I mean, their answer was, we did not do that, we don't do this. I mean, that was, and they consider the matter to be over. Do you consider the matter to be over?
Saeed, I just said if there are in fact any inconsistencies, then that should be looked into. But based on even just the public reporting, the IDF has been clear about what this is and what this isn't. That being said, we engage with the government of Israel and the IDF around the clock. This is something we'll continue to discuss with them if we need to raise any further issues.
Okay, a couple more questions, if you allow me. It has been reported that the U.S. is working with Israel to prevent any kind of ICC warrant of arrest of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Are you aware of that? Is that true? Can you confirm that?
It's important to take a step back here, Saeed, that since this president has come into office, we have worked to reset our relationship with the ICC, and we are in contact with the court on a range of issues, including in connection to the court's important work on Darfur, on Ukraine, on Sudan as well. But on this investigation, our position is clear. We continue to believe that the ICC does not have jurisdiction over the Palestinian situation.
Yeah, but you did welcome the warrant, the arrest for Vladimir Putin, correct? I mean, you welcomed it. I'm just asking you.
Side, these are two very different. First of all, I don't appreciate. You literally are, though. You literally are. There is no moral equivalency between the kinds of things that we see President Putin and his and the Kremlin undertake in comparison to the Israeli government.
So I will let you form your own conclusions on this latest episode of Double Standard by Americans. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.